Hey, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Nice to see you today. Nice
Yeah.
to see you. Bright Suns.
Bright Suns.
Tina McNeil and Mike, of course, your first Mike.
Yeah.
Good to see y'all. How
Sorry
are
for
you?
the brief delay there. We had some technical difficulties, a little bit of audio treble, but hopefully you'll let us know in the chat if we sound okay on your end.
Oh, yeah. Y'all let us know about our sound. We were
Yeah.
having some sound issues. Is the reason we came in just a little bit late. So, but anyway, welcome in. We appreciate you guys being here for lunch and Mando Mania. And here I go, guys. My nose is itching. Sorry. It always starts in, right?
Yeah.
We are reviewing episodes 7 and 8 of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
If you have not watched The Mandalorian, you may be alone on the planet or from another planet if you don't know about it. I actually I had to call Disney Plus tech support last night because when I came home and I've watched 7 and 8, like 3 or 4 times already.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I'm just doing some stuff. I thought I'll just go ahead and watch them again, kind of in the background and make a few more notes. And I couldn't get into, I got into Disney Plus, but it wouldn't play any of the titles. So called Disney Plus Tech, talked to a really nice CM who I'm going to give a shout out to later named Malcolm. I'm assuming Disney Plus, techs are known as CMs too. And he was kind enough to reset my account. He said, I'm sorry about that. And I said, well, I've just got to watch The Mandalorian. And he said, really? He said, I haven't watched it yet.
Wow.
A Disney CM said, and I quote, "Oh, I haven't watched it yet." So I said, "Oh my gracious." I said, "Malcolm, that is your homework assignment. You have to watch it." And he said, "Well, I am not as big a Star Wars fan." And he sounded kind of, he did sound kind of young. And I said, "Okay, but here's the thing." I said, "You should go ahead and try to watch it because this series stands alone."
Yeah.
Yes, it has a lot of references, and Star Wars fans know all the references to the original movies, but it stands alone. Watch it.
Yeah, it does.
It's fantastic. And he said, "You know what?" He said, "Since you told me that, I'm going to do it."
Cool.
So there you go. Instant fan. I've made a convert, right?
Yeah.
Guys, come on now, buddy. Mike, you have not. Mike, now you're pulling my leg, right? You're totally pulling my leg, right? You got to be kidding me. Yes, from what I understand, everybody even are all saying, yeah, that's my understanding too, Tina. Okay, I also have, and I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm kind of excited because we have this wonderful little book that William picked up at Target.
Cookbook.
And it is the cookbook, the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge cookbook. I'm so excited about this, guys. And I turned over as a special treat today to page 151. And I made a Cliff Dweller. It's a drink.
Nice.
Non-alcoholic drink. And I've got my marker in there to mark the page, but yeah, there's the Cliff Dweller.
Mike says, nope, not kidding at all. He's never seen it.
Mike Wheeler. If I didn't love you so much, I would ban you from my channel until you watch it. What is the deal? Come on. Come on, Mike. Help me out, buddy. You're killing me, Smalls. Okay, so here, guys, is my version of the Cliff Dweller.
Oh, nice.
It is non-alcoholic. Well, I put a sugar rim on it because from the ingredients, it seemed to me like it would be a little tart. Yeah. I have not tasted it yet. I just mixed this up.
Oh, Mike doesn't have Disney Plus. Okay, there we go.
Oh, well.
That explains it then.
Yeah. But anyway, and it's pretty. It has, again, it's non-alcoholic, but I did put a sugar rim around it because I thought it sounded like it might be kind of tart. It doesn't have a whole lot of sweet in it. So here we go. Here's the taste test. Okay, here we go. Cheers and Bright Suns.
Bright Suns. Cheers. What's it taste like?
Ooh, this is going to be a do-over.
Really?
This is totally a do-over, guys.
What all went into it? Oh, Russ says Mike is blind, so technically he hasn't seen it. LOL, but yeah, it also doesn't have Disney Plus.
Okay.
That's an excellent point.
This is wonderful. I'll have to mix this up next time you and Jillian come. I'm going to set it down, but I hate to. It has 2 ounces of orange juice, 1 ounce of pineapple juice, 1 ounce lime juice. I used fresh. Has 1 ounce of grenadine, which is like a mixer that's used in mixed drinks. It's made from pomegranate juice. 1 ounce of coconut cream, which it's really bad for me to go buy a can of coconut cream, guys, because I can eat it straight out of the can. And 1 ounce of ginger ale. So that's what's in the Cliff Dweller. And it is fantastic, and I'm going to enjoy that while we talk about. Oh, hey, Lori G.
Yeah, welcome in. Thanks for being here, Lori Jean.
Have you watched it, Lori? Have you watched The Mandalorian? We better jump into this because we always run out of time. Let's go ahead and jump in. Lori Jean Carlson, what in the world with Russ? Mike Wheeler, Tina McNeil. Thanks, guys, for all being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're going to talk about episodes 7 and 8. And so what, you want to kick us off there, William?
Yeah, chapter 7 is called The Reckoning. Starts off, we see the Razor Crest flying through, space. The child's sleeping, and Mando gets a transmission from, let's see. Oh, Tina says that makes it dairy free for those who are dairy sensitive. That's a good point. It's a very good point.
True, Tina. Yeah. And there's a description to it. I'll read you the description out of the book.
Yeah.
Too. Cool. Go ahead, William.
Yeah. So there's a transmission that Mando receives from Grief Karga. Basically offers one last commission to take out the client. The Empire forces have grown on the planet Navarro. And, basically Grief offers, in exchange for Mando coming with the child and taking out the client to kind of eliminate the Imperial stronghold. He says, I will clear your name with the guild. And so, Mando gets it and kind of, thinks about it. And then he heads to the planet Sorgan from chapter 4, the sanctuary, where we meet Cara Dune. It looks very much like Endor, very, wooded.
Going to need reinforcements.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so
better to back him up than Cara.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Former shock trooper for the rebellion, and we see Cara Dune. It cuts to her, and she is fighting for money / entertainment there at and so anyway, she's fighting this guy, this big dude that's a lot bigger. He looks to be the same race as Darth Maul, but just different colorings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember.
It's an interesting battle. This is actually a reference to a nod to her UFC days, because the actress who plays Cara Dune is a former UFC fighter. That's the reason she has such a nice body. She's physical, she's big, she's very suited to this role. And so they have they're tied together. It's but it's by a laser lock. Yeah,
some sort of laser cord rope thing. They're both connected by the belt buckle, essentially.
Based on this. And she essentially ends up knocking him down, wrapping this imaginary, well, it's not imaginary to them, cord around his neck and choking him, and he taps out.
Yeah.
So she beats. And
then all the people watching, exchange money for who they'd bet on, and Cara collects the money from people, on who they thought would win. And we really see it in this scene. It really, verifies that Mando really trusts Cara. But Cara's main concern about helping Mando with the job is getting caught and being imprisoned. because although she says, although as the New Republic is now, ruling the galaxy instead of the Empire, because this is after the events of the Return of the Jedi, where we see the Empire defeated on Endor. So basically, Kara, you used to work for the rebellion, but due to the jobs that she has taken since the New Republic has taken over, her name isn't clear with the New Republic, and she would be captured and imprisoned if they found her.
Yeah, and she does mention that since then she's done some other things too.
Yeah.
So she's not free and clear. Should they run? What is it? What do they call this, William? I failed to write this down. The code.
Yeah, the chain code, I think, is what it. Yeah.
It's apparently they run it on Grief later when he goes to the town, and it's apparently an ID of some kind that you have to have in Empire territories to do probably pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And Kara says, if anybody runs my chain code, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, she is totally not interested in doing this with him until he mentions that the client is Empire. He's Imperial. Yeah. Her demeanor instantly changes, and she says, I'm in. Because obviously Cara Dune, as a former shock trooper, seeing what they did on Endor and probably other planets, she hates the Empire. So she's in.
Yeah, and so they, cuts to them on the ship, and they're talking about kind of their plans. And we see the child moving throughout the ship, unsupervised, and then all of a sudden, Mando and Kara are talking to each other
below the
and they're kind of in the cargo area, and the ship starts flying crazy, and there's a bunch of alarms that go off, and we see that the child is having a little bit of fun piloting the Razor Crest, and
he's pushing buttons. The child. Pushing buttons. So Mando gets control of the ship, and Kara says, "We've got to have somebody to watch this kid." Kara's not the motherly type, obviously.
No, not even a little bit.
She doesn't immediately take to this child, and she says, "We got to have somebody to watch this kid." So that takes them to the next scene and the next planet. Yeah.
So they head back to, they have a need for someone to watch the child. Tina says, never, ever leave a 2-year-old, or in this case, a 70-year-old alone. They head back to go see the character that we saw very early on in the series, back in episode 1, Khalil, who is an Ugnaught. Yeah.
And he's played by Nick Nolte. His voice is Nick Nolte, which is really, really interesting to me, because I know the Nick Nolte of old, like the 70s, 80s Nick Nolte, and he has, like I have, we've gotten older, but his voicing of Khalil is perfect. So I love Khalil.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, Khalil's dialogue's fantastic as well. Mando shows up and he wants to recruit Khalil. And Khalil's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily want to do it either. And we see, as they're talking to Khalil, all of a sudden you see IG-11, who the last time we saw IG-11, he was about to shoot the child.
He was.
He's about to terminate the child because that's how he was programmed.
Yeah.
And Mando takes him out. Yeah. And so fast forward, we see IG-11 walk in, and Kara and Mando are immediately on guard, and they draw their weapons, and, Khalil tells them, hey, I've reconstructed and reprogrammed this unit to be essentially a nurse droid.
Yeah.
And so,
not yet, because he hasn't programmed, he's programmed it to be more of a servant at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But he, Mando's is very suspicious and says, but their original programming is to be killers. He obviously had been sent out for the child as a
They're usually bounty hunter
Bounty
droids, is what IG units are.
Yeah, and so Mando's very suspicious. Basically, they have a conversation, and Kuil says, "You trust me?" And Mando says, "Yes, from what I've seen." And he said, "Then trust my work." And so Kuil's condition for going with them, he agrees to go with them, which is really, to me, a big leap of faith in Mando for Kuil, because Kuil is fine where he is. He's finally got, thanks to Mando, he's got peace on his planet. So he's fine. He doesn't need this, but because it's Mando, he agrees to go. Yes, Tina, he says of IG-11, he's a servant now, but he will still protect.
Yeah.
So, as conditions for him going, IG-11 goes, which doesn't make Mando happy, but he agrees to it. And the blurgs go, which I thought was really funny. And Mando goes to protest, and he says, "I have spoken."
Yeah.
So that's the end of it.
Here's random Star Wars news of the day. One of my former coworkers just texted me that I said Han Solo. Harrison Ford is currently in Fort Worth for some reason.
Oh wow!
I don't know why, but my buddy, my former coworker, just told me that Harrison Ford is in Fort Worth for some reason today. So there's your. He said, "I repeat, Han Solo is in Fort Worth." It just kind of popped up.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Happy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
maybe he's looking to move to Texas.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah. And we see kind of this montage of Kuil training the IG unit. He said I had to retrain him, from the very beginning, like teaching it to walk, like teaching it to pick things up without destroying them, teaching it to be gentle in the way it carries things.
Right.
Another interesting note,
all the way from scratch, because when he redid it and erased his original programming completely, then the IG unit had to learn to move again. It had to learn to do everything again.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to me, because as they went through this montage of where Kuil is teaching him, to walk and simple things like pouring tea, it was like it was a child. It was like the IG-11 unit was essentially a child, and Kuil raised him back up. So that was an interesting piece to me.
Yeah, for sure. And it just shows, how patient Kuil is as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Kuil's very patient with Mando as well, whenever he has to teach Mando how to ride the blurg.
He is.
And so, he definitely comes off as kind of that wise figure. I agree, Russ. Kind of comes off as kind of a almost, Yoda wise character for this series. But so he reconstructs it and reprograms it to be a servant. And during this kind of training montage, we see that IG grew a personality.
Which is really interesting. And remember, Mando hates all droids. Mando is very distrustful of any droid, but especially he tells Kara this particular droid. So,
Welcome in, Amy. Thanks for being here.
Oh, hey, Amy.
Yeah. And Tina says to follow Russ's reference, it's like when Yoda was training Luke. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, that's true.
And Kuil tells them, it's not a hunter anymore, but it will protect.
Right.
And so, I wrote down this quote from Kuil. He says, "Droids are not good or bad. They are neutral reflections of those who imprint them."
Which is what when I was working for the school district as a technician, that's kind of what I told my teachers and staff. I said, the tech is not good or bad. It's just what it is. It's how we use it that makes it good or bad. You can use tech for good or bad. So that's I thought of that when I talking to I had people in the school district who just had a really dim view of technology, and they didn't want to learn it, and they didn't, and it was, as a technician, I love tech. I love all tech. I'm a techie girl. As Jeff calls me, I'm a gadget girl. So it was my job to help them learn how to use the tech, to realize that it could, make their jobs easier, et cetera.
Yeah.
So that kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah. So Kuil, finally ends up joining, which there's kind of a little bit of friction between Kuil and Kara initially, because and Kuil pokes a little fun at her and says, looks like you got this one from the Cyto Caves of Nora, which I was like, who knows what that is, but I thought it was funny. Right. And then there's also an interesting conversation between Kuil and Mando talking about the child. And I think Mando or Kuil says, is it a strand cast? Making it sound like, is it a clone? Is basically what I thought was implied.
Right.
And so Kuil, no. Yeah. And so, he said, it looks like, based on the way it's grown, it doesn't look to be a clone. Mm-hmm. Another thing too is Kuil, we find out, served the Empire as an indentured servant. He had to buy his freedom, he said, with 3 lifetimes worth of human work.
Yeah. They're that whole tension between Kara and Kuil comes to a head after they get onto the ship. They're headed to Navarro, and there's an incident where Kara and Mando are passing the time. They're arm wrestling. Yeah. And Kara says, "I got you, Mando." And the child apparently misunderstands that she thinks she's trying to hurt him. And so he does the magic hand thing, and Kara starts to choke. Yeah. And of course, Mando realizes what's happening and stops him. Kuil is observing that, and he says, okay, Kuil's wheels are turning. He says, this probably explains the incident with the Mudhorn.
Yeah.
And, how that all happened. And then there's a kind of a Kara kind of challenges him a little bit again
on his allegiances.
You were serving the First Order, you say,
Empire.
Excuse me, wrong bunch, wrong bad guys.
Yeah,
you were serving them, as you say, as a slave essentially, but you're still alive.
Yeah,
and that's when he says, don't challenge me on this. Don't doubt me on this. I worked for 3 of your human lifetimes to win my freedom. So that was pretty. And Kara, she's kind of shut down after that.
Yeah. And Mando kind of refocuses Kuil's attention too, and has him work on a better pram. He wants him to to make it more comfortable for the child to ride in. But he says that I'll build another one. I'll refabricate it.
Let's say, Russ, which could also be said for the relationship with Mando and the child. The child is learning from Mando during the whole series, and it could affect how he uses his powers in the future. No, I think that's a good analogy. We'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Tina's follow-up's good too.
Yeah, later on. The armorer gives Mando an even deeper charge concerning the child. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But yeah, I think you're right on track with that, Russ.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so there's one other thing that I wanted to mention here, and this is just something I caught. William, your suggestion to watch this series with closed captioning on is great, because they use a lot of words and names, and they say them, and of course they're foreign, they're made up names for the series. And if you don't have closed captioning on, you don't catch them. And I didn't catch it until I turned on the closed captioning that Kuil keeps calling Kara a dropper.
Yeah.
And I'm taking it that's kind of a slur name for a shock trooper.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. I meant to look that up before the show.
Right. But he calls her that about 3 or 4 times. He calls her a dropper.
Oh, shock troopers, also referred to as droppers.
Okay.
Looking it up on Wikipedia.
Perfect.
Says we're specialized infantry of the Alliance to restore the Republic and New Republic. During the Galactic Civil War, shock troopers were deployed to hunt down Imperial warlords, and following the New Republic's formation, they were made into peacekeepers who escorted delegates and suppressed riots.
Okay.
There you go.
So it's probably like a slang term for a shock trooper. I'm thinking it's not the most complimentary term, maybe.
Probably not.
For a shock trooper. Just the way he kind of, throws it out there. He calls her a dropper, and it's his tone of voice. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Just something.
And that's the same way, in the next chapter that Moff Gideon refers to her as a dropper too. I'm pretty sure. That's true. But yeah, there's a bit of an exchange between Kuiil and Kara, and we also have an interesting discussion touching on the kind of I guess debate between nature versus nurture, because they have a conversation. Mando just outright doesn't trust IG. And he says, I don't care if he's been rewired. I don't trust him. And so, even though, Kuiil's put forth all this effort to, completely change the way that IG functions, he still, distrusts the IG unit.
He does, yeah, completely at this point.
Yeah. And let's see. So they fly back to Navarro and land and meet up with Greef Karga. And both sides kind of have security detail. Mando's recruited his team with the child and Greef Kuiil and Cara Dune and IG-11, and then Greef's got 3 of his bounty hunters that he trusts to kind of back him up too. So they all kind of meet up, and that they're trying to make plans. And Greef finally sees the child, which I think I don't know that he had actually necessarily gotten a good look at the child until this scene. Mando sends the pram up to Greef, and Greef says, I understand why you wouldn't want to harm the child, after seeing how cute it is. But so yeah, they I think again, Kara is referred to as a dropper, maybe by Greef as well.
He protests her being.
I think her tattoos definitely give her away, because they tell her, which I was kind of confused. Like, she's got this little Republic tattoo below her eye. But apparently the real giveaway is the like rectangle blocked tattoos, stripes that she has on her right arm. Yeah,
and Kuiil, Greef protests her being there at first. He says she's going to be, an adjutant. What's the word I'm looking for? She's going to kind of make this situation more complicated. Just her presence. And Mando says she's going, and he says, "Well, at least cover up the tattoo, so it's not so obvious."
Exactly. And Tina says it kind of looks like a barcode. Yeah, it does kind of look like that. But yeah, so they end up traveling. They're trying to get nightfall, move closer in towards the marketplace area where the client and all of the Imperials have basically taken over.
So they start to make camp.
Yeah, they make camp at nighttime, and they're talking about their plans. And the quote, you have to know, anytime you hear nothing can go wrong, or trust me, everything will be fine. Yeah, Greef Karga says, trust me, nothing can go wrong. And then immediately they get attacked by like this giant pterodactyl looking beast
Right.
And they're flying over. One of the bounty hunters gets carried off. One of the blurgs gets picked up and carried off, and the other one, almost gets picked up. Mando gets almost carried off too, and then he sets one of the beasts on fire, and there's a ton of commotion, ton of blaster fire at the animals.
Closes the pram.
Yeah, he closed the pram at the very beginning to make sure to protect the child.
But they do injure pretty badly. They injure Grief. The big talons. They have these huge talons. They look like pterodactyls. And so his arm just has these enormous talon marks in it. And Kara says, Kara, who's probably encountered these creatures before, says the poison is spreading. And they think he's done for. He thinks he's done for. He thinks it's going to kill him. Because they don't have another med kit. They have nothing to, Kara treats it a little bit with a med kit that she has. And they don't have any more medicine. So he's essentially, he says, well, this is how it ends. He's just pretty much.
He's accepted his fate, and Kara calls him dramatic. But he gets injured, and then the child steps in. And this what we see here is very intriguing, because I should have done my homework before the stream. I ran out of time, but there are very few Jedi, from what I understand, that are capable of force healing. And you see, we see Rey do it in the Rise of Skywalker. Spoiler alert! In case you haven't seen that, we see Rey use force healing. I need to gather a list, actually, of all of the
how many times that was done.
Yeah, how many times we witness force healing take place. But the child steps up and touches Grief Karga's arm, and not only stops the poison from spreading, but completely heals the wound, as if it never happened.
Right.
So it's miraculous. Everyone is shocked by what they just witnessed, because even Mando, up to this point, I don't think has seen the child use this ability. Right.
No, well, and we've seen it. There's the one scene early on in the chapters where Mando he's injured by the mudhorn, I believe, and the child tries to heal him, and Mando doesn't understand what's going on, so he just keeps picking him up and putting him back in the pram. So obviously, with the Force, and the child is obviously Force sensitive, comes the ability, with all, don't know, to heal, and he heals Grief, and so they're back in business, and this is a critical turn here for Grief, because we find out, later on, as they wake up the next morning and they're leaving.
Yeah.
And the thugs, the bounty hunters, that came with Grief as kind of his security detail, draw their weapons. They're going to kill Mando and Kuil and Kara, and Grief stops them. He kills them. And he says, there's something you ought to know. So he confesses to Mando that, my job here was to kill you and take the child.
Yeah.
And after I've seen the child, after it healed me, after I see why you're protecting him, I couldn't go through with it. I talked to these guys about it. They disagreed. So, I end of discussion.
Yeah.
And so at this point, Kara is like, whoa. This is not what I signed up for. We need to back out of this, blah, blah, blah. And Grief convinces, Grief says, okay, but if we don't go ahead with the plan, let's go ahead with the plan. Let's go on in. You kill the client for me. That'll, bring peace back to the valley, but, back to the planet, kind of get rid of him and get rid of the Imperial presence there. And unless you do it, the bounty hunters are still going to keep coming for you, because there are still tons of bounty hunters that have trackers on them. And what has it profited you so far, or how much good has it done to run so far. They're going to keep coming. And so Kara wants to back out, says no, no, no. And Mando finally says, he's right. We've got to put an end to this.
Yeah.
So, yes. And yeah, and exactly. He always is exhausted. The child is always exhausted after he exerts the force.
Yeah, that's a pretty common theme. Most of the time, whenever we see Jedi, especially do, I guess do something borderline miraculous. Miraculous in this case. Healing a wound. And we see Yoda is exhausted whenever he uses the force as well.
Right.
Now sometimes we see smaller uses of the force, like a force push, or even force choke. We usually don't see the exhaustion as much with those, but yeah, it sounds like it's a very taxing ability. I did a quick Google search on Jedi that have used force healing. Ki-Adi, kind of that very pale. Head kind of comes to a point. Jedi with the I think he had like a little ponytail off the back from the Clone Wars era, the prequels. He uses it, and then Barriss Offee, who is in the Clone Wars series, also uses it, which actually she ends up kind of being a bad character. A spoiler alert. And trying to frame Ahsoka in the TV series. Shakti, who looks very much like Ahsoka, as a Jedi from the episodes 1 through 3. Anakin Skywalker apparently at some point uses force healing. Luke Skywalker apparently uses force healing. Now you can always remember there's different source material out there. So if we don't see it on screen, it could have potentially happened in a book.
Right.
That's their scope is a bit wider. We see Rey use force healing on that like sand snake thing that they run into in Rise of Skywalker.
Right. And then later on Kylo Ren, she also uses Kylo Ren. But I wanted to say just quickly, Russ, I meant to send you an Instagram message earlier.
There you go.
Russ has not watched the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I need to check it out.
You absolutely need to watch. The Clone Wars is fantastic. There are 8 seasons. It gives so much valuable information on the Clone Wars themselves. It develops the characters. It introduces Ahsoka. It's well done. The animation is beautiful. You'll love it. You'll absolutely love it. You got to watch it.
It's great.
Good on you.
Russ says they explain that using force healing actually takes part of the Jedi's own life in order to give life. That makes sense.
That does.
Yeah. Let's see here. So they come up with a new plan after he turns around and takes out the 2 bounty hunters he had with him. So they decide that they're going to have Mando fake captured, and that they're going to claim that Kara was the one that captured him, and a Grief Karga is going to lead them back into town with the empty pram. They're going to send Khalil and IG and the child back to the ship, and so Kara ends up covering her stripes up, or her the tattoos on her bicep on her right arm, and so they head back into the marketplace area, and they're immediately stopped by a couple of scout troopers, the guards that are kind of defending the entrance to the marketplace, and they want to see the chain code. And Grief Karga kind of tries to talk his way around, offering up his chain code, the little card that he had with him that they end up scanning. It says, "I've got something for the boss." Trying to kind of bypass this this check-in here before they go into the marketplace. It's kind of funny because one of the scout troopers says, I've got, he offers 20 credits for Mando's helmet. And Grease says, "No, this helmet's going on my wall." Mando's like, "On your wall?" Really?
Just go with it.
Yeah, just go with it. So anyway, they're escorted.
my mind went immediately to 20 credits. Probably couldn't even touch Mando.
Oh yeah, that's low ball for sure.
Yeah. So
yeah, no doubt. Especially too, Mando refuses the Imperial credits from Grief. Back on that initial bounty that he gets, he's like, the Empire, it doesn't, isn't in power anymore. These are worthless. So, but anyway, so they make their way through the marketplace back into that room where Mando had originally met up with the client, and then where he had rescued the child. They lead him back in there, and the client, it's kind of interesting. The client is impressed by Mando's Beskar armor. And it just talks about the craftsmanship, that dates back to ancient times. And he poses the question. He says, "Why did Mandalore resist our expansion?" The Empire, and this is kind of that propaganda that you hear.
Yes.
He says, "Why did Mandalore resist our expansion? The Empire improves any system it touches, judged by any metric: safety, prosperity, trade, opportunity, peace." And it's 100%.
Notice he didn't throw freedom in there.
Yeah, no.
It's very Nazi-esque to me.
Yeah.
That piece right there is just very Nazi-esque to me. It's very totalitarian, communist, socialist kind of.
You'll have peace as long as you're submitting.
Exactly.
And as long as you do what we say.
Yeah, and freedom's not on the list, but we'll give you all this. There's a
and then the quote that became an instant internet meme was, "I would like to see the baby." Is what the client says. And anyway, so they're having this conversation. That Grief is kind of stalling. They don't want to open the pram because they don't want to show their hand yet. And so the one of the troopers steps up to the client, and he has to take a call. And he steps over, and Moff Gideon pops up. And this is the first time we see Moff Gideon pops up on the little what's the word? On the communicator. And he asks if they have the child. and he says, yes, it's sleeping, because he thinks it's in the pram. And he says, you may want to check again. And then without any notice, all the blaster fire. Oh yeah, Tina makes an excellent point too. It's because there's more than 4 stormtroopers. Yeah, there was definitely more coverage in that room than they had initially anticipated.
Oh yeah.
And so all this blaster fire just comes screaming through the window that the client is facing, and just starts wiping out everyone in the room. Pretty much all the bad guys, all the stormtroopers and the client are all taken out by this blaster fire. And Mando and Grief Karga and the child and Kara, well, actually, never mind, the child's not in there. Kara, Grief, and Mando are all able to take some cover. Hey, welcome in, Mickey Sightings.
Now they, well, I lost my train of thought, but go ahead. It'll come back to me.
So so Moff Gideon, it just shows you the type of tactics right off the bat. This is a bad dude.
Oh yeah.
This is a guy that will do anything it takes to establish power.
Yeah.
And to take over the situation.
Right. Anything.
He wipes out. Even the troopers talk about it in the next episode, the next chapter. The troopers talked about it. And they said he wiped out a whole squadron of his own people, just to prove a point.
Killed one of his own officers because he interrupted him.
Yeah, Moff Gideon is a bad man.
Yes.
So Gideon, blows through all of his people, the people that are on his team, in the room. Just with all this blaster fire, and And the other thing I was thinking about was we see a lot of stormtroopers in this scene. And they're all kind of coming out of different areas. Like we're seeing these forces kind of amass in a large group.
Stormtroopers that are, and we'll need to go ahead and wrap this up and do a chapter 8 next week. But the interesting thing about it is, you know, when all these new stormtroopers arrive, their armor is white and clean and new, and it's not like all the stormtroopers that we've seen previously on the planet. They're obviously the new guys, and we're here. And Moff Gideon, just so you make no mistake about his allegiances, arrives in a TIE fighter. I was like, of all the entrances to make, he's just going to fly in his TIE fighter and set that bad boy right down in the marketplace. In the middle of it, which he does. And that you know, if there's any doubt who this guy is, that pretty much erases it. And he knows how to make an entrance. You got to give him that.
Oh yeah.
But he comes into the scene, and Mando, of course, is desperately trying to raise Kuiil on the comm to make sure that they've made it back to the Razor Crest.
So here, real quick, it's not a very good picture. You can Google it. But here is a picture of the 501st members that. So basically, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni decided they did not have enough stormtroopers for this scene,
right?
And I think it was this scene actually. Right.
Probably an issue.
Yeah, and so they basically rung up the 501st locally and said, "Hey, we need some more stormtroopers. Come on." And they said
the 501st is.
The 501st is a group of basically a fan group that has since they're the 501st, I think there's a Jedi version of this as well. But the 501st has a bunch of Imperial Imperial kind of maybe it extends to the First Order, but they're fans of the Empire, basically. They show up to children's hospitals, they do parades and stuff.
And stormtroopers. It's a whole group of people.
They dress up as stormtroopers.
I have a nephew who's actually a member of the 501st. And basically, if you want to be a member of the 501st, you have to buy your own armor, and you have to submit an application. You have to submit pictures of yourself in it.
Yep.
And in order to be a member of the 501st, everything that you have, your costuming, everything has to pass muster with them before you're actually, they say, okay, you're a member. And so it's pretty cool that this is a fan group. Yeah. And Jon Favreau, where are we going to get more stormtroopers? Yeah. And so they call in this fan group, and they have their own armor. They have their own weapons. It's fantastic. I think that is just one of the coolest things I've ever heard. And they come in this particular, I think it's probably this particular scene, and help them out, get to be in the. Yeah,
I think it was too, because they said during the Star Wars celebration, they mentioned this moment, because I think maybe Jon Favreau had tweeted out this picture of them with the 501st. And anyway, I found this little quote here from Dave Filoni. He said, "The thing I know about Star Wars fans is that, in all honesty, a lot of the costumes you guys made are even better than what we see on screen." Yeah. He said, so I had no doubts that they would look great. And he said they act like stormtroopers, talking about the 501st members. So they had very little coaching. It was basically a plug and play situation. Right. And so just so cool. Russ says that Lucasfilm does that with droid builders too. That's really cool. Yeah. So if you get a chance, if you're interested in hearing more about the 501st, you can always Google it. And then if you want to know specifically about the 501st and them joining in on one of these episodes of The Mandalorian, and I think it was this one. It had to be this one, because this is the most stormtroopers we've seen yet. Yeah,
I've always kind of wondered why Adam, my youngest son, has never has never, gone for membership in the 501st because he really likes the clone troopers. And
Yeah.
So it would probably be right up his alley. He's really tall too. So
yeah. The 501st is called Vader's Fist. They were kind of Vader's like his I guess segment. I'm trying to think of it was his group. They were I'm trying to remember what it's called, but anyway, it's not coming to me right now. But yeah, you can always do more research on the 501st Legion. But I think in one of the Star Wars Battlefront games, I think it kind of it follows the story of the 501st. Wow. It's been so long since I played it, but yeah. So
there's a communication between Mando again is trying to raise Kuiil desperately on the comms to make sure they made it back to the Razor Crest safely, because he tells him to engage the security protocols on the Razor Crest and nothing getting in there apparently. So he's trying to confirm that they've made it back to the Razor Crest, and the comm signal is intercepted by a couple of stormtroopers, and they immediately take off to intercept Kuiil. And so it's kind of a race, and you see Kuiil, with the child, and he's on the blurg and he's riding as hard as he can. And this scene really, really hurts my feelings because Mando was trying desperately to raise Kuiil on the comm to make sure they got back. You see Kuiil riding so hard and breathlessly that he can't even answer the comm. And then it kind of cuts back and forth, to scene in town, to the
Moff Gideon steps out of the ship, walks over, kind of introduces himself. Giancarlo Esposito does an excellent job. This character is very, very cold, calculated. It's kind of eerie that he's like so calm, cool, and collected. It's if you know Star Wars Rebels, this character kind of reminds me a little bit of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Who is also a bad dude, which I've got to finish the Rebels series. I'm not all the way through it yet, but he's very calm, cool, and collected as well. But yeah, he the stormtroopers go after Kuiil. We see a scene where Kuiil is laying on the ground. It looks like there's maybe smoke rising away from his back, obviously alluding to the fact that the child has been intercepted by these scout troopers on the speeder, and they have possession of the child. And then they're turning back towards the marketplace to go take the child there. And Moff Gideon expresses to Mando and Grief and Cara how important this child is, that he gets it.
Mickey sightings. Sean says the 501st has over 14,000 members. That's amazing. That's really neat. This one really hit me hard because, as I've said, Kuiil is one of my favorite characters. And
it tugs at you because if he'd have just been left alone, he could have lived out the remainder of his days. It sounds like most of his life was dedicated to working to get freedom, and all he wanted was peace and to be left alone. And he's
he finally got it, and he, but I think he more than anybody probably understood the risks of going with Mando, of helping him, and he did it anyway. And so he made his choice. But when Mando goes to pay him for his help earlier, he says, "No, I don't. I just want peace in my valley." So he won't accept any
payment.
A payment. And so Kuiil is, they couldn't have made it this far without Kuiil at all. And he's the one who went in and salvaged IG-11 from the stronghold where Mando left him laying because he was about to shoot the child. And Kuiil salvages him. And of course, in Chapter 8, IG-11 is very instrumental in helping them, move the ball, as it were, down the field. Not to give any spoilers away, but so Kuil's character is critical in so many instances to helping Mando, and he's obviously a friend, a loyal friend.
Oh yeah. So chapter 7 ends, and the good guys are. It's very, kind of that Empire Strikes Back feeling. It seems like things are very bleak for our heroes. Kuil's dead. The scout troopers have the child, and Mando, Grief, and Cara are all pinned down in this room with tons and tons of Imperial forces led by Moff Gideon outside.
Yeah, the last scene is actually Kuil. You see Kuil lying dead on the ground with a gunshot wound, and the child is actually, he's dropped the child, and the child is actually still bundled in his blanket on the ground. And that's kind of, and the shock troopers the clone troopers are coming. So anyway, or the stormtroopers. I'll get my right troopers here in a minute. But that's how that episode ends, and it's really sad because I think, well, it's a movie. Maybe they could bring him back. Probably not.
No, he's pretty well gone. But it's so sad. Kuil's character is so great, and it just breaks your heart to see his demise like that.
Yeah, but we'll next week, guys, we will go ahead and cover chapter 8 and talk about a few things. Our favorite parts of season 1, and then what we would like to see, coming up for season 2, which drops October 30th. Yeah, I'm excited. And I did want to tell you this clip, this drink, which as you can see, it's pretty good. It doesn't look how it did when we first looked at it, but I did want to read. There's a description in this Star Wars Galaxy's Edge cookbook of the drink. It says. It's the Cliff Dweller is from the planet Octo, which is, quote, one big ocean with a few craggy islands jutting up out of the water. Yeah. The planet's few inhabitants don't get many visitors, but when they do, they serve this drink. Its surprisingly tropical flair manages to make Octo's rocky shores seem like paradise. So that's the drink. And I did want to give y'all a little teaser. We are next on Tuesday.
Octo, just a heads up. Octo is where Luke goes to hide in the Disney trilogy. And
you remember, it is mostly covered with water in their islands. So so this is from the planet Octo. It's the Cliff Dweller.
That's cool.
It's really good. It's really good. It's kind of a sweet tart drink. I love it. It's would be great anytime, really refreshing. So, but we will also, guys, for Hitchhiker Chat, I'll just go ahead and tell you, I'm going to make the Ronto wraps on the cover of this. I'm going to go ahead and make the Ronto wraps and possibly a salad and maybe a dessert on Tuesday night for our Hitchhiker Chat.
Woo!
So that'll be fun. Hopefully I'll have a cooking cam set up, and I'll be in the kitchen. And William and Jillian might do a drink.
Yeah, we'll do what we can. We don't want to wake up Wyatt by banging and clanging around in the kitchen. So we'll see what we'll look through the cookbook and see if there's anything we can come up with too. Yeah.
Quietly, make it
quietly.
So we're gonna do that. And let's see. Let me get to my announcements here. I began my official countdown to our Walt Disney World trip. I'm counting down using a Lego Star Wars advent calendar. I don't have it here handy. I've pulled a ship and a character so far. And so those are going to drop daily as we count down using that advent calendar to our trip. I'm doing a quick daily video as I pull each piece, so be sure to check out those and ring the bell so that you receive a notification for each one. And you'll be notified when we go live in Walt Disney World, because that's coming up in November. So also, I'll fill in for Jillian on Saturdays, What's Brewing with the Bones.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk
tune
about...
in for your daily dose of Dawn on Saturday.
Tune in on Saturday. Jillian has a bachelorette party, and so I'm going to fill in for her. And I'm going to talk about some of my Disney memories, our family's Disney memories. There should be a lot of nostalgia. I would love for y'all to join me and tell me, let's talk about our first memories of Disney. How old were you the first time you went to Disney? What makes you love Disney so much? And so there may be a few pictures involved. And so I'm looking forward to that on Saturday morning at 8:15 Central, 9:15 Eastern on Saturday morning. Then on, of course, Hitchhiker Chat, I've already told you what we're going to do there. For October 27th, we're going to be cooking from the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge cookbook because Mandalorian Season 2 drops on the 30th. So, and we're full of news. We're also doing a Halloween costume party with What in the World with Russ, who is in the chat. If somebody could drop a link to Russ's channel, that would be super. We drew costumes like out of a bowl, and we all drew a different costume. We're gonna dress up and have a stream on Halloween on October 31st, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, and get together and see everybody's costumes and maybe give away some prizes. So, yeah. So that's going to be fun. I think, is that all we've got going on?
I think so. Tina said that she watched the videos before this video, so that's really neat.
Good deal. Yeah. Her eyes on level. Okay. Welcome in.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of what we've got going on. We appreciate that. You appreciate you guys.
Shout out to Aunt Joy, Mike Wheeler, Tina McNeil, DCS, What in the World with Rush, Lori Jean Carlson, AJC Magic TV, Mickey Sightings, and Her Eyes on Level. Thank you for joining in the chat today. We really appreciate each and every one of you, and thank you to everybody watching on the replay.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. And if you get a chance to pick up that Galaxy's Edge cookbook, if you're a Star Wars fan, it really has some. I'm really anxious to see what's in here. So, not a paid endorsement, just just checking it out. But thanks, guys. We appreciate you joining us for lunch and a little bit.
Look forward to next week.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of Mando Mania. Tina has dropped the link there for Russ's channel, and so I think that's all I have.
All right. Yeah, same here. Everybody have a great day. Have a great, looking ahead to the weekend. So hope everybody's doing well. Hope you have a great day. Thanks again. And as always, please hurry back. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being here.